a lot of it comes down to identity and who you want to be. And I've never ever said that I'm old and broken. The reason why I haven't said I'm old and broken is because I want to do cool things. And I've always looked at physical fitness as that avenue of like, if someone called me tomorrow and this is, like not everyone has friends like this, but says, do you want to go climb a mountain, whatever mountain that is, go climb Mount Whitney in California? I feel like with like little to no training, I could just go do it. And I think that's like an identity that I've sort of always held on to of what do I need to be in shape so that I can do the coolest things that I want to do.
Service Academy athletic programs run on Teamworks. The same technology platform now powers military readiness across the Joint Force. Learn more today at teamworkstactical.com. Team, welcome back to another episode of Mops and Mo's. We put out a survey this week on social media. And the question was effectively like, how do we phrase it? What would you prefer?
Yeah, I think John chose the language and I just posted it, but I believe the language was like, which is more operationally useful or operationally effective?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know where I came up with this question that day. I threw it out to the two of you guys and was like, I wonder what the answer to this would be. Which is more operationally effective? Somebody who, meets the minimum?
So option one was perfect AFT
Perfect
score,
AFT, yep.
but then bad sleep, bad social relationships,
Yeah. High
drinker,
stress,
all that kind of stuff.
all the things. But
And then
perfect AFT score.
option two is the inverse.
Yep.
Person like barely passes the fitness test, but has like healthy social relationships, good family life, gets good night's sleep, copes with stress in healthy ways, all that kind of stuff.
And which would you prefer? And how many over 200?
Yeah, I probably had 300 people, I think, voted on the survey.
Last I saw was like 90%.
It was roughly 90% said option two would be more operationally effective. I did get a lot of messages saying that like that's a false dichotomy, and like
how is that
the
a
MOS,
false dichotomy?
And like I sent. I don't. Drew knows this. I've created some better boundaries. I don't respond to all the messages anymore. So apologies to everybody who got my like auto reply that says I don't monitor all these messages. Some of you, the lucky ones that I did respond to your message, you probably all got the same message copy pasted back anyway, which was that there is no room for nuance in my intentional false dichotomy here.
How's that a false dichotomy? Those two people exist.
Sure. I think the reality is the like operationally effective ideal is somewhere in the middle. If those two people like anchor the ends of a spectrum.
Yeah, I think
it's not a false dichotomy because we're not pretending it's a dichotomy. It's just a choice between two soldiers.
Really, it was more of a thought experiment coming off the back of the symposium last week, the H2F symposium, where we talked a lot about, Goodhart's law and, the different logical fallacies, and presumably the AFT encompasses all there is to encompass about lethality, because it's not all we measure, but it's like the thing.
Quick aside, I use this in briefings all the time, but Drew,
please,
of the domains of health, fitness, and wellness, and I'm not talking about just the H2F domains. I'm talking physical, sleep, nutrition, but also like social connection. I'm talking like everything, all of it. Like lots of different domains, whether they're official or not. Which one does the military treat as the most important?
Physical.
Why?
It's easy to measure.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. Doesn't mean it's the most important. And like 90% of you guys out there following said you would take a minimum passing fitness score, but like better in the other domains than you would a perfect score. And yet we basically don't measure or score any of those other things.
Yeah, and don't get on your high horse about like PAR cues and all the different things that are out there. Those aren't nearly as like quote unquote important as, and that's not, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to be a hater here, but I found it interesting. I honestly, when I threw that question out to you guys, I expected there to be more of like an even split and more of a debate. it was pretty interesting that just
We have a pretty pro physical fitness audience on the page.
which is wild. And maybe, naively, maybe this is indicative of, a changing of the guard in terms of people recognizing there's a lot more to it than just your physical performance. But um, speaking of defying the odds, how's that?
I was wondering how you were going to transition that one.
Yeah. Well, speaking of freaks, who are we talking to this week? That one was for you, Jamie.
We'll see how he feels about that transition.
I meant that in a positive way.
Our guest this week
Is back.
Before I dive into this, I'm doing like a modified version. This is his second appearance on the podcast, so I'm doing a modified version of his original bio because pieces of his original bio no longer work, and that's why he's back on the podcast.
Yep.
Our guest this week is Jamie Monroe. He's back for his second appearance on the podcast. He was a Navy SEAL from the mid-90s through the early 2000s, served on SEAL Team 1, later transitioned into the reserve. And after his military time, he got an MBA from Pepperdine and started pursuing entrepreneurial projects. These span a huge range. These include everything from like running a hair salon to managing large-scale sporting events. In just like a fantastic side quest part of his journey, he also won an Emmy for his work on NBC Sunday Night Football.
I forgot about that.
So he's done a lot of things. You'll hear some like brief mentions in the episode about ReadyFit, which is like an app he's been working on as another one of those entrepreneurial projects. It essentially is an app that solves fitness testing for the military. It does not just have all like the standards built in for all the different services tests, but leveraging some computer vision stuff can grade automatically if you get the camera angle right and all that kind of stuff. We did not dive into ReadyFit particularly seriously in the episode. What we dove into is that at the age of 50, he decided he had some unfinished business in the SEAL teams, and he just recently commissioned as an ensign. So after his time as a enlisted SEAL a couple decades ago, he's going back in as a SEAL officer on a reserve SEAL team,
which is sick. Like you said, we had Jamie on before. God, it's been a while now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And randomly the other day, scrolling through social media, saw him like commissioning back into the Navy SEAL community. Texted Alex. Alex's response was, "The fuck?" And we realized this is pretty cool. So we reached out to Jamie, and lo and behold, he came back on to talk to us. And what you're about to hear is his. Well, it starts a little bit with his journey and kind of where he's at now, but I think we dive into a lot of other things around, people's perception around how you should age versus how you could choose to age with regards to maintaining a level of fitness, and your identity being wrapped up in all of that. So I think kind of it goes along with what we were riffing about not too long ago. These perceptions around fitness, believing that you can versus thinking that you can't. Yet here we have this guy who's a badass and decided he just, wanted to jump back in and passed all the tests to do so. We should add.
I'll shout out two things. One is, you mentioned it's been a while. It's been over 3.5 years since his last appearance on this podcast.
God, we've been doing this for a long time.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
It was September 2022 when he came on.
3.5 years? That was post-COVID, right?
Yep.
I guess we're all in a post-COVID world now.
The other thing I will shout out is that followers of the social media will have seen a comment from Jamie on the stories not too long ago, before I knew about all this going on, because he does like engage with the page regularly. We appreciate it. We were having some discussion of like running technique kind of stuff. A lot of people were very upset. A lot of people supported our campaign against Pose, or I guess it's really my campaign against Pose. Drew's not that involved.
Yeah, keep me out of that.
But some people were very upset about it because they're like, well, without that, what are we supposed to do for running technique? And Jamie's response was,
run.
If you want to get better at running, just run more. That's kind of the whole thing, and it's not that complicated. And I keep hearing that from like really, really good runners.
We need to do an episode on that.
How do you get like an hour-long conversation about like, hey guys,
Well, the best part is the
just
title,
run?
the clickbaity title is The Secret to Running Well.
Ooh.
And then
We need it to be even clickbaitier than that.
yeah, suck at running, listen
Like,
to this.
Zone 2 needs to probably be in the title.
Yeah, it's true.
Because people
Zone 2 Ranger Running Secret.
yeah, behind the scenes, folks, this is some podcast business knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why you guys do listen to certain episodes and don't listen to other episodes, but episodes that have Zone 2 in the title and episodes that have Ranger in the title.
Or probably Navy SEAL, which means this episode's going to do great.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll find out.
Thank you, Jamie. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's all there is to say about that.
I mean, I think I trust his just run advice more now that he's still maintaining Navy SEAL fitness standards at 50 after being a civilian for a couple decades.
Yeah, and stay tuned till the end because he reveals which generation is fitter, the old one or the new one. So enjoy. Alex, start at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to start at the beginning. We need some background. Drew and I know a little bit of this. The audience is coming to this cold.
Wait, let me pause you. Did you know about this before I texted you? Or did I break the news to you?
Oh, I think I found out about this because Drew texted me.
Yes,
I think Drew saw it before I did. That is correct.
That's great.
I was scrolling and I saw that post that you put up and I texted Alex. I was like, Jamie's back in the game, dude. And he responded. He goes, oh, fuck. I thought he was referencing something else. He was talking. So anyway, I interrupted. Sorry, Alex. Back to you.
That brings us to the post in the story, which is like, how did you end up rejoining the Navy SEALs at 50 years old? Like, how did this come to be?
Well, so to clarify, I'll be a reservist. So there's probably
I'm a reservist too. I still get to say I'm in the Army.
So
don't undersell yourself.
Yeah, but I don't think they're. I guess I'm gonna be a good sixth man on the team. Is I guess what I'd like to say. But
But to be clear, when you say you're a reservist, you are on a reserve Navy SEAL team, correct?
Yeah. There's a reserve team on the West Coast and a reserve team on the East Coast, and I mean, the story is I was enlisted. I actually got out in 2004, so I've been out for more than 20 years. And a friend of mine was asking me why I didn't finish and get 20 years, and I had told him I always had intended to. I went to college, got an MBA, was going to come back, and when I tried to come back, they found that I had a heart murmur and I got declined. And at that time, I was just going to come back enlisted, and I had appealed and then it took a while, but a couple of years ago, a friend was talking to me about it and asked me if I was still interested, if I wanted to finish, and told her the story. And she was like, well, I don't think that's a thing now. I think you might be able to get that waived. And I was like, well, I'll go through the motions. And, if you think it's possible. So I had to go through what's called the DCO program, which some of you guys might know about it, but
Yeah.
a lot of times you go through either, the Naval Academy or West Point, or you go through an ROTC. There's not a lot of options for DCOs that have been separated for a while. So I had to get, 3 interviews, interviewed with the commanding officer of the command, a lot of paperwork, had to do the same MEPS physical that I had to do when I was 18 years old, had to do the duck walk, go get all of that stuff taken care of. Interesting on that one is my heart rate was so low just because I'm older. It's supposed to be above 60. So for the physical, the guy had me like jog in place until I could get my heart rate above 60 so that it wouldn't raise any red flags. And then I had to take the SEAL physical screening test as well as part of that application. So 1/2-mile swim, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and a 1.5-mile run. And then I waited a while, and I thought they weren't going to pick me up. And then I got notified in October that they selected me, but then I didn't even get an official letter until January. And then even when I got the official letter, the commissioning just happened last week. I was like, someone's going to look at this and go, what are we doing here? This guy's too old. But it was all legit. And and I have a lot of really great friends and colleagues that recommended me. Of course, like now a lot of my friends are either retired Master Chiefs, E9s, or they're like currently captains. So I probably had a lot of good recommendations in my court that a normal like junior sailor surfaceman wouldn't have. But yeah, I mean, I was super excited to do it. I probably made a little bit more of a big deal out of the commissioning than maybe I needed to, but for me, I thought it was a big deal. So, I could have just done like the grab a guy and do the oath, and I invited, friends and family, and made it a little bit of a thing. So,
Of course, it looked like a big event, like from what I saw on Instagram.
yeah, I mean, I think as you guys know too, and you guys interview a lot of guests and have a lot of good like business mentors and relationships and colleagues over the years. And so I just said, well, how many people would feel like I left them out if I just posted a LinkedIn post of here's a career update and I didn't tell them. So I sent out an invite to, about 30 or so really close friends and colleagues, and then I ended up having about 70 people that came. So
Jeez.
it was bigger than I thought it was going to be. So
This is a dumb question, but I know people out there might have it, and I honestly had never even thought about it until because 2004 you said you got out, so
yeah,
20 plus years now. Is once you graduate from buds, like obviously you don't have to go back through buds.
yeah.
Is it designed to be like, hey, you're good for life? Or do you get to a point where they're like, maybe we should like test people before they come back in after this long? Like, does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, no, I know what you're asking. I think, I mean, I've stayed close to the community, but it's probably like anything that's specialized, there will be qualifications along the way, so
Mm-hmm. That
So if
makes
I'm
sense.
going to go do some more shooting, I'm going to have to get, some basic shooting quals. If I'm going to go jumping, I'm going to have to re-up my jumping quals. Same with diving. So I think all those things will apply, and those will probably be a little bit of a pain point. And like with anything, you get rusty if you haven't done it in a while. I do shoot from time to time, so I feel like I'm pretty up to speed on that, just with friends and locally with ranges. But some of the other stuff, not so much. I think where I will hope to make the biggest impact is, my normal job. And I think what the friends that I knew that recommended me to go is event planning for sports. So Easy Day Sports is my company. We put on huge events everywhere. We just did a 5K for the Dallas Cowboys all over draft weekend just 2 weeks ago. And the reason why I got into that business is I sort of gravitated towards mission planning when I was
Mm.
in. I liked it. I thought the like thinking about all the things that you should do and can do and all the things that can go wrong, just a step by step process. And so, I've done that now for 20 years, and then coming back, I'll probably have a similar perspective, but maybe a different perspective because I'm doing mission planning, if you will, kind of in the civilian world, planning major events, trying to think about all the things that can happen. But they're two kind of parallel um, occupations.
If you don't want to admit this on, the air, that's fine. But you use the term rusty. I want to ask, where are you rustiest?
I mean, I think it's hard to tell. Like, well, acronyms. I mean, that was a silly one, right? But
That's
like
fair.
the recruiter will send me an email with like 10 acronyms, and I'm not too ashamed to just respond back and say, "What's this, this, this?" Um, that's more a humorous one, but
That's actually perfect because you're an ensign now. Like you're an
yes,
O1.
oh
So like
one,
needing to ask what all the acronyms are is on brand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well
yes.
done.
I won't know, like this whole N scale. I don't know if you guys have those, like the N1, N2, N3, N4, all the different departments. Well, in the Navy, they have
Oh
those.
yeah. S1, S2,
S1,
S3,
S1.
S4 in the
Yeah.
army.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So trying to learn what those are, because I don't really know if they really used those much 20 years ago. So, or maybe they did, and I just wasn't.
I think that's one because I've been around the Air Force and the Space Force as well for them adopting some of it. I think that might be one where the Army was doing it first, and the branches have over time adopted the same system, so it's
What is the
similar
what
across.
letters does the Air Force use?
A.
Oh, does Space Force use S?
Yep.
Interesting. That's like a weird rabbit hole that I didn't think
And
about.
then for the Army at least, it's G if it's a general officer's staff. And
Oh,
then
that's what the G means.
yeah, and then once you get to a joint assignment, it's all J.
Mm.
So someone
Huh.
will say, "Hey, Jamie, I want to introduce you to so and so. He's an N9 over at such and such," and I'm like, kind of nod my head, and then got to figure out what
Sick.
an N9 is. So um,
I
so
love that.
that stuff. I mean, we'll see operationally. I think it'll be a definite learning curve, but um, I'm excited to get back into it. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome, man.
Have you I know you just commissioned. Have you trained with your unit yet?
Not yet. No, it's still the HR. Like I have to get
Mm,
into the. I don't know if the Army calls it the DEERS system, but it's
yep, same thing.
yeah. So I think it's like any day now. But as soon as that
Have
happens,
you
then
have you met him yet?
yeah, I've met him. I had to interview with the CEO of the command to get a recommendation. So yeah,
How do they feel about a 50-year-old ensign?
I don't know. I haven't met like the guys. I feel like I mean, with all this going on, I mean, you're a similar role as an officer, more senior than me, but I think there's a lot of administrative work that they're looking forward to probably offloading, teaching someone how to be a captain's aide somewhere or whatever it ends up being. So um, I'm looking forward to the challenge. I think there's enough work to go around that no one looks at it as like it's a negative. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Nice.
What I mean, eventually I know we'll like get over the age thing, right? But like you've always been a fit dude. What does your current fitness look like? You mentioned these tests you had to take. Like what are we talking about in terms of run times, pull-ups, all the things? Like give us the details.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not as competitive as I used to be for sure, especially on the running side, but I'm still pretty fast. Just a refresher, Alex knows this, but after I was on active duty in the SEAL teams, I ran cross country in college. So I was fast enough back then to get a scholarship. And, I was running 5 minutes and change. I think my training runs are still low sevens. Um, Generally, I'm running a lot less miles because I'm older and I feel like I'm susceptible to injury. But, if I were to train for a race, I could probably do sub 6:30 or maybe low six.
When
At a
when you
5K,
say
10K.
when you say doing a lot less mileage, I want to make sure because this comes up a lot. Like people have different definitions of low, moderate, and high mileage. What is your weekly mileage roughly?
Well, right now I'm nursing a little small injury, so don't look at my Strava because you'll be like, he's lying. Um, but normally, like a good goal for me is 15 miles a week, 20 miles
Yeah.
if I'm really doing
Nice.
more, and then if I was training for something, I think whenever you get to 30, it means you put in probably a couple 6-8 weeks of good training to get there. But I've always had a mantra when I've trained guys that 15 miles is what it takes in the military, is what it should take if you want to get better at running. And I'm all about like simplicity. Everyone wants a coach and a training plan, but I try to break it down into four key workouts, two easy runs, 2 to 3 miles, 20 to 30 minutes, a hard tempo run at like 20 minutes. So like a 3 mile, not quite race pace, but something that would be like an interval type workout. But as you don't have to do intervals to be good at running. You could just run 20 minutes sustained pace and get a lot out of that at sort of, I guess that'd be like a lactate threshold thing, VO2 max, whatever, like all the stuff that's going around about increasing your HRV, which I don't even really follow much, but run hard for 20 minutes and you'll probably do that on its own. And then a long run, if you want to be a good runner, you don't have to make the long run any harder than the two shorter runs. Just an easy long run. I think um, a lot of people who've never run don't have the systems like they're not as efficient both cardiovascularly, and then they're susceptible to shin splints because they don't have the bone density, and all those things develop over time. You can't fake it. You can't just do one 20-minute hard run a week and be good. But I think
Hmm.
people would be surprised if they put 3 easy runs on their calendar, and then all of a sudden you're like at um, 3 3-mile runs and one 6-mile run, and that's 15 miles. So it's a pretty simple system that you could do in 2 hours a week total of running for most people. So
I'm glad you jumped on that topic on your own, because the
This is
last
low
like
key a running
social
episode, by
media,
the way.
yeah, the last social media engagement you and I had was when I was posting stuff about pose method, and like some people got mad at me because they're like, why are you taking away this tool? Like, what are we supposed to do now? And I appreciated your answer. And I don't know if I'll get it word for word, but I think you just said, if you want to get better at running, just run more.
yeah,
Mhm.
basically
And and I
a
think
little
we can all
crass,
agree
but
that there's like, yeah,
No,
there's
you're right.
nuance to that, right? Like if you have an injury, you might need to see a physical therapist and like figure out some unique stuff potentially in that situation. And like Drew will get poetic if we want him to about like hybrid stuff and how to balance it around strength training and all that. But like most of the people who are needing a running intervention in the military, and I can't speak for the Navy SEALs, right? Because there's a higher expectation there. But for like most of the conventional military, the people who are worried about running, it's not as complicated as we want to make it be. They just don't run enough. Like they just aren't logging even like 3 to 4 weeks consistently in a row, running at least 2 to 3 times per week, at least 20 to 30 minutes per session. Like that's the baseline, I think, is like you have to hit at least 2 to 3 sessions per week, 20 to 30 minutes a session to have any kind of progress, even if you're not really particularly aerobically fit yet. I like the I like your benchmark of saying 15. I think that speaks to certain audiences, but like we've seen coaches out there say that like you should never run more than 9 miles in a week because you'll get injured. Like
Who the hell said that?
that. I mean, at the risk of
You can
bashing the
name.
same guy too often on the podcast, that
Please.
is a quote from Matt Wenning's tactical
Oh.
training book.
He's a power lifter,
I'm dragging.
Yeah.
so his opinion doesn't matter.
but I would add like there's some truth to people who don't run where maybe you do 2 easy runs and then one hard run, and then that's your 8 or 9 miles. And then as you start becoming more fit, you can add that longer run because you can and it's more comfortable. I think there's I know exactly what you're talking about because the problem exists in the Navy, and I think uh, this will be a little bit of a false dichotomy, but I think the first one is like people that are that meet the weight standard that just can't run, and those people are easy to get as to better runners because they just if they actually just put in that in the time they can do it, and those people also don't really care about the pose method or running form because they see results right away. I think what the other class that we're talking about is a lot of people in the military have a weight problem in the
Mhm.
general population too. And so running 15 miles a week might be a bad idea because you probably will get injured because you're carrying 20, 30, 40 pounds than when you were younger and running was supposed to be easier. So I think that's a harder challenge to fix. It's it's the long term 6 months to a year where that person really has to commit to a good diet first with maybe the walk jog method which is quite popular in the 30, 40, 50-year-old demographic of people that are just getting into running at an older age. But the reason why it's so successful is because it allows them time to adapt and lose a little bit of weight first before they start putting stresses on their body and getting hurt. So I look at it that way. I don't think like most people that come to me for running training are probably slightly overweight, and it's a diet and exercise problem, not just a I don't know how to run problem. So yeah.
So I have, man, this is a random question, but it's relevant to what we're talking about. And I cannot believe I've never really asked this given like the number of sort of soft folks that we've had on here. But like in the SEAL community, and I guess in the Navy at large, there's obviously like the aquatic component, like the swimming component, right? So there's already an endurance bias in terms of the type of person that gets attracted to these career fields. Having said that, if like social media is to be believed, there's still a slant towards aesthetics and getting big and strong and jacked and all these kinds of things. So I say all that within the SEAL community, as you knew it and as you now know it, what does that kind of mentality look like in terms of, hey, we're going to get big and strong, but we also still have to be able to move well in the water, which is hard, and over land? Like, I don't know if that's too vague or if that makes sense. Like,
Well,
how does the culture
yeah,
shape itself?
uh, it's things have changed a lot since I've gotten out, but I can tell you that the Spec Ops community as a whole has access to more resources than ever. The best trainers. I mean, and Alex, I know you're involved in some of the the hiring trainers for service members, and the difference is it's easier to hire like a training expert to work with the SEALs or to work with the Green Berets or whoever, because they're such a small group and it can be so specialized. And
Hmm.
what I see is those guys are getting individual one-on-one coaching. And even when they're going through, pretty hard like operational workups, they've got like a prescription for like, here's what you can do today, even though you're doing this. And it's well balanced. And most service members don't get that level of attention. I don't necessarily think they need that level of attention. I think it's great for the Spec Ops community, and I think it's great for morale. And I don't see. I think you see some guys getting jacked and really big, but what I see is it's without giving a plug, but giving a plug to High Rocks. They're kind of more like High Rocks athletes. They're like
Yeah.
they're they're really good runners that are really good at muscular endurance type exercises, not necessarily like reps and sets and things
Hmm.
like that. And I think that's a good thing. I think long term, it's going to benefit everyone's longevity, this craze that's going on, because it's not just about running at the expense of like having no body tone and not being able to do a pull up. And it's not pull ups at the expense of not being able to run. So, um, yeah, I'm seeing a pretty well balanced approach within the community I'm in. I think that stuff overlaps. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think social media is necessarily great for our minds, but I do see like people are getting coached by it and they're seeing what other people are doing. And I think there's some productivity in there. Like a silly one, right? Is just form and reps, right? Now there's like 1,000 influencers doing perfect push-ups and perfect pull-ups and
Mm.
perfect everything. And I know the standards when I was in, it was like 26 pull-ups to max out, like once you're in for your every 6 months evaluation, and everyone got 26 pull-ups. I don't think that's the case now. I think they're doing legit all the way up, all the way down pull-ups, and they would rather do 20 perfect pull-ups than 26 sort of like halfway down, halfway up to just say they did it. And I also think that's because there's a lot more shaming now. A lot more people know what a good pull-up looks like. So
Yeah, that's true. Guys, let's be honest. There's too many apps, there's too many group chats, and there's too much noise. Teamworks gives your unit one place for news, events, and resources so nothing important gets missed. If you want to learn more, visit teamworkstactical.com today. Team, this episode of Mops and Moes is brought to you by Train Heroic. Train Heroic is a reliable, well-designed platform for programming, tracking, and communicating with athletes. If you've been with us for any length of time, you will know that Train Heroic is the platform that we use to power our own training, long and strong, which you can find at our website, mopsandmoes.com. If you're looking for a solid platform to support your own coaching, whether it's your full-time role or a side hustle, Train Heroic is definitely worth checking out. You can use the link in any of our show notes, you can find it in our newsletter, or you can head to our website, mopsandmoes.com/training to get your first week for free.
I have a question to follow that, but first I just have to say I wish that had taken root in the Air Force,
It'll
because
get there,
we have
maybe.
not reached the point where people care very much about it. It's the push-ups, man. I like on an Air Force base. I work at the gym, walking through the downstairs part and seeing the PT tests in the morning. I actually, I won't use names, so I'm good to say it on the pod, but the senior enlisted leader for the base, I tested him a few
It's very
weeks back.
specific non-name.
And well, there's technically two for the base, so I'm not saying which
Okay.
one it is.
Fair.
And there are higher ranking commands on the base that have lots of senior enlisted leaders, so it's like not that obvious. But I did not count a few of his push-ups because he was not going all the way up, and he was very upset about that. And he told me like in the moment, like I'm gonna put the word out that you're like cutting push-ups, like I'm gonna tell people.
Oh my God.
And I said like, yes, please tell people that. Like
Oh
that is
God.
so good for my brand to have like a chief running around the base telling people that I'm strict on push-up standards. Like that's exactly what I want people to know about
Go
me.
forth.
But but getting back on topic, a frequent, speaking of social media, health and fitness kind of stuff, a frequent buzzword in that space is longevity. And when people talk about longevity, they're often talking about supplements or like at the extreme end of the spectrum, like blood transfusions and all sorts of crazy stuff. But I think as an example of longevity, you've spent the last couple decades as a civilian, as a veteran, just like taking care of yourself however you did, not adhering to any particular standards, just doing your thing. And coming back in at 50, you don't seem to have had much of a problem meeting the SEAL fitness screening test, passing the BUDS physical, all that kind of stuff. I'm curious, like what, I don't know if you like have a particular approach to this, but do you have an approach to sustaining performance long term? Do you think there is something about the way you have approached it? Because I meet people in their 30s and 40s from the military or veterans who consider themselves like old and broken already. So I'm curious what you think has set you up for success on being able to just like get back in the game at this point.
Yeah. Without being like cliche, because I mean, obviously a little luck is involved, but I would say like maybe not quite the answer you were thinking I would give, but a lot of it comes down to identity and who you want to be. And I've never ever said that I'm old and broken. The reason why I haven't said I'm old and broken is because I want to do cool things. And I've always looked at physical fitness as that avenue of like, if someone called me tomorrow, and this is, like not everyone has friends like this, but says, do you want to go climb a mountain, whatever mountain that is, go climb Mount Whitney in California? I feel like with like little to no training, I could just go do it. And I think that's like an identity that I've sort of always held on to of what do I need to be in shape so that I can do the coolest things that I want to do. I competed a lot in running events, and I don't actually like lacing up the shoes and going for a time and a 10K anymore. I competed so much, but I do run like people ask me what am I training for, and I don't know. Like sometimes it's just for life to stay fit. I'd put this like, hey, I know if I'm in good shape, if I'm doing 15 to 20 miles a week, I might have a work trip where I don't work out for 4 days, and then I look at my calendar and I'm like, man, I haven't done anything in a week. I better get a couple days in there, and then that kind of resets a habit, and then you're kind of back on track. So the longevity piece for me is partially, well, mostly the consistency, but then I would also say like along the way I've always had like little micro goals that I didn't mean to have, but like something I wanted to do during the year or every other year that I'm like, oh, that would be really cool if I did that. What do I need to do to be ready for it? And it could be like I don't know what year it was, but it was like I was in my early 40s and I was a good runner, but I'd never broken 3 hours in the marathon. And I was like, man, I'm starting to get too old to break 3 hours in the marathon. So I better do it this year. And that set me off on like a 3 to 4 month path to train for that and get it. So that's, one example of something that you can look at. 100-mile bike rides, or maybe it's not even a just because some friends are going on a bike ride and you want to be able to tag along. So I think that consistency and coming up with, sort of small goals. Like this past year, I went and climbed Kilimanjaro. It was super awesome. It was actually way easier than I thought it was going to be, except for the last day. The last day was incredibly hard, but it was more the physiology of the altitude than anything. But I had to feel like I could be out hiking for 6 days. So that, at least led to a 2 month block of training where, once a week I was like, oh, I'm going to go either go on a hike or go on a longer run so I can feel like I'm prepared. So that's been my approach. Also, a little bit of a plug, but especially the last couple of years, you talked about fitness testing and standards. I've been working on the app that I talked to you about before, ReadyFit, and I take a ton of military physical fitness tests on my own because I'm a free beta tester. So I've done the Air Force one, the Army one. I don't. I, I'm different than most. I think they're kind of fun to see where you're at. I don't think they're especially hard. Like the Air Force and the Navy one, the standard one is, planks, push ups, and a mile and a half run. So as I've been testing my app along the way, I've been like, okay, well, this will just be my workout today. And I don't have to like crush it for time. I don't have to like mile and a half time trial and max push-ups. But I just need to put up a 2 minute number so that I can test the app. And then that ends up being my, 20 to 30 minute workout for the day. So that's helped, I'd say, in the last 4 or 5 years on the calisthenics side of things. Because I could say there was probably a period where as I got older, I stopped doing as many. So
There's this is not a follow-up question. This is just like me trying to underline a point you made that I think is really important. Because right at the beginning of your answer, you talked about like the way you think about yourself, like how you self-identify. And I think that's underrated and like more easily modified than people realize. The example I went through after I had knee surgery, early on, I would refer to my right knee as my bad knee, right? It was the one that had the torn ACL, it had the surgery, it's got the big scars on it. And it might have been a physical therapist, it might have been somebody else, but somebody was like adamant that like it's not your bad knee. Like you can call it your surgical knee if you want to like refer to the one that had an operation done on it, but it's not your bad knee. There's nothing bad about your knee. But if you describe it that way and if you think about it that way, it will like over time be your bad knee. And so like it took me time to like change my thinking on that one. I'm at a point now, I think my surgical knee, my right knee, might actually perform better because when I was doing all the rehab for it, I didn't always, you're supposed to do the exercises on both knees, but I didn't all, like if there's limited time, I might just do it on the surgical knee. And I
Mm.
think some of my like balance and control stuff on the right side might actually be better because of that. And I think, like I said, no question at the end of this necessarily. Just want to say like directly to the audience for a second, like don't think of yourself as broken. Don't think of yourself as slow. Don't think of like don't set like internal perception limits on what you're gonna get better at or how good you're gonna get or any of that kind of stuff because that will put artificial limits on your performance.
yeah, I want to add to the identity thing. Obviously, there's some SEALs that do and some that don't, but forever, you will, as people get to know you, you will always be known as the guy that was a SEAL or the guy that was a Ranger or the guy that was whatever. And um, for me, that was motivation enough to be like, well, if someone's going to say that about me, I want to at least look the part. People will give me grace for getting older, but have some respect for, kind of the legacy that I started and now I'm trying to finish. And I think that goes the same for service members in any branch is, I see a lot of people get out after 4 years and they hate it and they're like, whatever branch, I won't say which one, it really sucked. I hated it. But what you find is that the further away they get it from it, it becomes the thing that they're most proud of, the thing that they
Mm.
did, like that they were the Marine Corps guy that was like, hated it when they were in. They thought the things they did were stupid, but they set such a standard and taught them all these things that 10 years later, they're the ones that are in the VFW telling stories about how great it was. And I think if you think about when you're in the military, you will always have that. And then if you can sort of carry that, I know I'm focusing on the physical fitness side of it, but carry that physical fitness as a habit you go through in the life because you did do more than the average civilian, and that is your legacy and the example that you can set to other people. So obviously, I do it for that same reason sometimes, but I would find it hard to get out of shape just because of that. So
So I have to ask because you kind of hung this one out there when you mentioned running through all these PT tests. Like, what's your maybe this is a two-parter. Like, what's the hardest one, and what are your thoughts in general on the battery of PT tests that we're swimming through right now?
um, well, and you guys are probably more the experts than me, and so I won't. I will say what I know, like just straight experience. I think it's
Please.
great that the Marine Corps has a 3 mile run in their test,
Thank
and
you.
I
I
think
just
that
made this point.
that is a truer test of fitness. You could throw everything else out. If you can run 3 miles and it doesn't have to be fast, that means that you're mobile and you're generally healthy. It's almost like a health test. Um, the every service seems to have push-ups. I know that a lot of them are adding the hand release push-ups, which is probably more to avoid cheating than anything else. But I like it. I'd like to see more of them do pull-ups. I think it's an underrated
Mhm.
exercise. They're finding out in longevity that grip strength is a measure of longevity. I'm not sure how they came up with that metric, but you get grip strength from doing pull-ups, and then you see it when you shake someone's hand. Like I mean, it might be just when you get older, you can hold on to a handrail better, but just as a whole, it's like being able to carry yourself. If you can do a few pull-ups, like you're going to be better off than most people. So the test that impressed me the most, just on my background, was the sprint drag carry and the ACFT. I thought that was
Mm,
the way it's conducted within like kind of more of a standardized test, but is more like a actual like evolution, like a shooting and running drill. I thought was kind of my favorite iteration. I know you guys can go into the details of there's static tests and then there's these ones that are like occupational training, and that's kind of a blend of both. But I think that test on its own probably could go to all services because especially if you're going to be on the front line somewhere, being able to, what is that? It's like basically a 2 minute all out evolution using mobility. And so not necessarily a straight answer. The SEAL test is pretty basic, very passable. A lot of people aren't great at swimming, but I think where the SEAL test like delivers, and that applies to SEAL, Special Boat Unit, EOD, diver, and rescue swimmer, is just that it's an endurance swim. So a 500-yard swim is at 10, 11, 12 minutes is not easy for a lot of people. So I think that one excels in its own category. Um,
mm.
and the fact that you got to swim and then do all the other stuff like 10 minutes later, gets to see if you're recovered and how you perform. But um, I wanted to kind of riff on Alex's like push up thing because the app that I'm talking about is ReadyFit, and because of this AI evolution, we've integrated computer vision that automatically
Oh,
scores tests. So our app has come a long ways, and so you can take a test, and you've got the app score, the user score, and then the grader can log in and see the video and give another score. But you can't cheat if the phone is set up in the right camera position to the point of like having to no rep someone. You don't have to no rep someone, and there's no emotion in it. It that we put like a little bell as a ding that counts the reps, and you immediately don't hear a bell if you do a rep and it doesn't count. And that what's great about it is we can adjust it. So arms could be 90 or they could be chest to the ground. You can make it. But if you're even 1 degree short, it's a rep, but it doesn't count, and because it's not meeting the standard. And so that's something that we've been working to try to get it implemented. We've been doing like a test group with an Air Force group out of Holloman Air Force Base. We've had some challenges. I think that the biggest challenge is, to your point, Alex, is I think a lot of people don't know what a good push-up is. So they set up their phone and they do a push up, and then they realize that none of their reps are counting, and they're like, "Why I did them?" But what's unique about us is like we can immediately on the app show them their video of their push ups, and if now with social media they see what other people's push ups look like, and they're like, "Man, I didn't even know that I look like that when I was doing push ups." And the other thing is if they know that it's a machine, because we have it now where we can set up like just like a push up demo at like an expo booth. People will go all the way up and all the way down. They will make sure they lock out their elbows. We do this silly like 15-second push up test for a leaderboard at like a just at a expo booth to promote the app. And when there's a leaderboard and they know that it's not me that's counting the reps, the people that will do the push ups will do them correctly. So
Hmm.
it's I have like another probably take that you guys may have already talked about, but I kind of feel like these fitness tests should be pass fail and kind of go away from like all of these levels. I know like levels are important to a point, but if we're really trying to occupationally qualify someone, maybe we could take away the stigma of the fitness tests. If I'm not saying make them easier, but put them at that mid level where it's gonna be hard for some, easy for the good people. And if the good people want to, bust out 20 pull-ups when they only need to do 15, like so be it, they can show off. But like if the tests are really meant for occupational um, use, it'd be a lot easier to administer because then you're not worried about counting reps. You're like, did he do more than 50? You don't care if they did, they go from the good to great category. They're just pass or fail. So,
Man, there's so much there that I wanted to break down and keep talking about.
I kind of want to pull on that thread.
Well, I'll like having to pick a thread to pull on. I think I'll start with one that I've noticed with like I noticed this in particular with military service members who are like struggling with something. Um, and it's the way they talk about it, and it relates to your app giving people good reps or not on push-ups. I've done a lot with wearables. Um, some wearables will give you a VO2 max estimate, and I hear this phrase all the time from service members whose VO2 max is low. They will say, "The watch gave me a VO2 max of," and then a number.
Mhm.
And what they should be saying is, like, I generated a VO2 max of, or I achieved a VO2 max of, and then a number. They're putting ownership onto this like external device. So that makes me think a little bit of like I can immediately see like airmen when they're not getting the reps in the push-ups to be like, oh, your app is wrong. Like your app is bad.
100%.
Like maybe it's not the app. Maybe it's the push-ups you were doing.
It's the
but
Indian, not the arrow.
the other thread I was thinking about, so much of military fitness testing is based on like what previous services or previous generations of the same service have been able to get approved by lawyers. Um, like I'm not. I don't think we would choose push-ups for military fitness tests other than because they have been on military fitness tests for so long. Like I don't think they are a particularly good test. I think they have a ton of inter-rater reliability issues where like two different people grading the same person will give the person different scores. And I think they're like, yes, hand release push-ups make this a little bit better because it's a little bit clearer what a quality rep looks like because you have to go all the way onto the ground and then all the way up. But as far as I can tell, all the number of push-ups a person does tells you is how much they practice push-ups. And I don't know if I care that much about it. Whereas something like a pull-up or a mile run or a 3 mile run or whatever tells us a little bit more about a bigger picture type of fitness. Again, that's not a question. It's just me rambling because you brought up so many like important, relevant things.
well, I would this may be politically incorrect, but I would say like maybe push-ups are the gateway drug to just weight training and getting in shape. Like as a young man, you do push-ups and you see results right away, and now you look good on the beach, and now you have a reason to run, and a reason
Yeah.
to do
Mhm.
sit-ups, and a reason to do curls. And um, you're right. I'm not
Mm.
quite sure. Like, I mean, I guess if you're good at push-ups, you're good at pushing people. I don't know what else you works your shoulders too, but Um, anyway, I do think that there's definitely a benefit though of saying like if you do this you're in shape, and because that leads you to doing other things because you want to be more in shape if you have the right
Mhm.
personality. So if you care, I think that's the bigger problem.
I,
We get the military to care.
speaking of like unconventional or maybe politically correct, I don't know, but like I do think the most important thing that fitness tests do, and is not captured in any of the exercise physiology research at all, but like even if it's a bunch of stupid exercises that don't predict anything, it is a good test of whether you're willing to try consistently over weeks and months. Like, an end of story, right? Like maybe it doesn't need to predict outcomes perfectly. Maybe it doesn't need to like be the exact biomechanical movement pattern we need to see. I don't care. Like it's just a quick check because you can't cram for it the night before. You can't have somebody else do it for you. You can't fake it. Like it's just a check of are you willing to on a routine basis try kind of hard at a thing.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And that, again, that kind of goes back to the 3 mile run where it's even
Mhm.
harder. It's harder to fake, and so if you're really going by the take a test every 6 months, that 3 mile standard means you're at least going to probably start thinking about it 2 months out, which then is that reoccurring cycle that you're doing multiple times a year of like, hey, I need to train for something to get in shape so that I can pass it. And I think those kind of habits are what people need. So
I want to challenge you in real time because this is something Alex and I have kind of. I mean, we created one. I want to see what you would come up with here. But like, what would your ideal PT test be? Clearly, it'd be pass fail, which you can dive
yeah.
into. What does it look like?
Phew,
No
just
pressure.
no pressure. Well, I would keep the push-ups and the pull-ups. I would keep the push-ups for a couple reasons. I think it separates the good from the bad because you've got people that can do 40 or 50, which can be impressive, and you also have people that can do 80 or 100. And I'm talking like if we're really going for a result, not just a pass fail, I guess. So,
What would your number be? What would your number of push-ups be?
well, I mean, I think anyone that can do 80 push-ups in 2 minutes is really setting the bar.
Now we're talking.
You know,
Now we're
I
talking.
think I think and I think it's actually more attainable than people think. I mean, when you break down like that's only 40 push-ups a minute, but it also means that you'd have to sustain 40 push-ups a minute for 2 minutes in a row, which is testing endurance.
Mhm.
Um, pull-ups, I would just like to see like 10 perfect pull-ups, like 10 dead hang pull-ups, and then we're riffing on the 3 mile run. I'd probably say the 3 mile run. And then the finishing it off with the sprint drag carry would be,
Oh,
you know, I mean, I'm looking at like what's out there now. Um, I don't think the average person needs to swim. It's a
I was
specialized
gonna ask
thing.
you. I was gonna
It's a
ask about
specialized
swimming.
thing for a specialized, like if we're talking like mass populations. My opinion is I would do away with all the alternative exercises. I would do away with the row. I would do away with
Mhm.
the beep test, or is that what do they call it? What's the Air Force call theirs? It's
The hammer.
the hammer, which is basically the beep test.
What was the acronym again?
It's the
HAMR.
Yeah,
Some
it's the high aerobic multi shuttle run. Every branch has their own.
Hamster. That's right.
The Army
Hamster.
calls it the Army aerobic run or Army interval aerobic run test. It's all the pacer test. They are all just
it's a pacer.
rebranded pacer tests.
But
Yeah,
what I found, I didn't know this, and this was Alex probably can relate. In talking with some of the junior airmen, if given a choice, and they are given a choice, they'll do the hammer all day long, and not because for why you think. The reason is it's easier to pass the hammer, harder to get a good score.
correct.
On the run, it's easier to get a good score, harder to pass, and
Yep.
if you're out of shape. So all day long they'll sign up. Well, it's an incredibly hard test to administer. You got to do it in a gym. It's like this audio thing. It's a little clunky,
Mhm.
and um, and when you watch it, it looks silly because for the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, like people are like shuffling across the gym it's like a fast walk. So, if it's really an occupational test, we're talking, it's like do a 20-minute run or do, whatever to see if this person's mobile. So I guess that's my answer. I don't know if that helps.
Let
Before
me
Drew's going
hold on.
somewhere, I just have to sneak this in here. I saw an active duty service member drop out of the hammer before getting to level 3 recently.
What? Can't you walk?
Like you probably can.
Yeah. It's
Whew.
You're not allowed to like ship to Army basic training until you're like midway through level 4, I think.
I mean, where the
Yeah.
test is strong is like if like you're overseas and you can't be running outside and you don't want people to, you can do a test in a basketball gym and
Mhm.
it's good for that. But outside of that, I don't think it's worth it. And in the Navy, from what I see, everyone signs up for the erg bike or the row and the swim. They're not necessarily, they're easier to pass, harder to get a good score on all of those extra evolutions. So
The one defense I will have of the hammer or the aerobic interval run test or the pacer, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully everybody at least experienced
It's just
that
called
in
a
gym
beep
class as a
test.
kid.
It's called a
Yeah,
beep
beep
test.
test.
Stop calling it the hammer.
But the one defense of it that I will make is, and this doesn't necessarily make it a good fitness test, but I do appreciate that unlike a fixed distance run, the individual decides when it's over. Like you decide when you quit.
yeah.
And I think everybody who
Mm.
takes it will admit that like they probably could have squeezed out another 1, 2, 5. I don't know what it is, but they learn something about themselves in that moment about like how prone they are to quitting when something is hard.
Yeah.
And
It's
I think
actually,
there's
but
a
it's
little
why
bit
I
of
don't
value
like
there.
it's also why I don't like the plank,
Mm.
right? Because the plank is just like everyone should be able to do a minute, but after a minute, then it's just like, are you willing to suffer a little bit? So is it really a fitness test? It's more of like a mental test. To me, it is. I don't
Yeah.
know. What do you guys think of
No, for sure.
the plank? I do think the plank just measures if you're overweight or not. Because if you can't do a minute or so, then you're probably overweight. And then after that, like if you're resilient, you can stick around for 3 or 4 minutes. So,
I want to run our fitness test by you and see what you think. It's called the FAT fitness aptitude test. We worked our way backwards. 1 rep deadlift, 1 rep max deadlift, AMRAP pull-ups, like actual pull-up grip, not chin-up grip, and then a 5-mile run. What say you?
5-mile run. I like the 5-mile
Yeah.
run.
I thought you might.
But just a 1 rep max deadlift.
Yeah, and Alex, jump in whenever.
We debated this a bit. The other
We
option
debated
was like a
this.
fixed weight for how many reps you can do.
Well, what we realized is like a lot of like, and we were doing this, I think, through the context of the ACFT and like all the different movements and all these things. Like, if you really think about it, you can distill tests down to like 1 to 2 movements that basically will tell you whether or not said individual could have completed the other thing, like the superfluous stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the deadlift, I think, captured without creating a lot of the injury risk that you have from like axial loading with a barbell for a squat and technique and blah 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 blah. If you can deadlift heavy enough, you're strong enough to do stuff.
Yeah.
And then the pull up, kind of the same thing. It gets after the body weight stuff, like are you overweight or are you not? And then the run, for the exact reasons you mentioned already with the 3-mile, like if you can complete longer distances, you're already kind of separating the wheat from the chaff. But then I think the other part that we played around with and we haven't fully fleshed out was that there aren't minimum standards. It's a floating score, like it's floating based on the number of entries that get put into the system. So the standard is always moving based on your peers or your quartile or whatever. We should probably revisit this, but I just, since you're the master of PT tests, I wanted to know your thoughts on the fat.
So on the deadlift,
Rip it apart if you want.
What's that?
Well, rip it apart if you want.
I'll try on the deadlift. Like as you get older, right? I worry, and all my friends worry. Like I don't need to deadlift 300 pounds anymore. And
that's fair.
My ego on the Army ACFT is I think it's 315 to max it or something around that. Maybe it's 340.
So, yeah.
So in order for me to train for that, and believe me, I probably could. I'm taking some chances, but I look back two, when you're younger, you're probably less knowledgeable and also taking chances. So I'm more with you. Like, what do you need to do to be able to do like the coolest things you can do? And if that's in the confines of what you need to do in the army, like what are the types of heavy things you're lifting? What's the max you'll ever lift? I don't think you'll ever lift something by yourself, 300 pounds, without asking for a couple friends for help. But there's probably 225 pounds is probably reasonable on a deadlift, maybe a little heavier, of like being able to do a few reps and get to that level depending on the job. And then
Mm,
again, if guys want to get better at it and specialize in it, they can. Just like when I was running, I could clearly pass the test. I didn't need to run 16 minutes for 3 miles if I wanted to, you know.
mhm.
Um, so I guess that I don't know. I think that's my answer on that one. Is that I would make the deadlift a set weight. I like the pull up feature. The 5 miles in, as it relates specifically to the military, is probably too hard, um, and not
I
necessary.
mean, you're
But
right. I hate that you're right, but
and I'm a runner, but I mean, but actually, I mean, too hard to make like even when you go through buds, it's 4 mile time runs, and you do I
Mm.
think 3 or 4 in each phase. So you do longer training runs that are longer than that, but the standard is a 4 mile time run. Um, and those are hard enough, I thought, because those are like all out efforts. So,
So is like 3 miles sort of like your sweet spot, like a 5K?
well, y- yes. Well, and I think for academically, right, you guys would know this too. I think the 20-minute standard is
Mm. Hmm.
is that lactate threshold, like where you start making improvements in longevity, in performance. Like anything longer than that, then you're training other systems. Like once you get beyond 3 miles, I think
Well,
it's like
see
that's more like
now,
speed endurance.
okay, I didn't mean to make this a thing, but I feel like because we talked about, the beep test, hammer time, whatever the hell, and the plank and just sort of self, quitting. Speaking of running, what I have always found fascinating is that you oftentimes see like task dependent prescriptions, i.e., 5 miles for time, 3 miles for time, whatever. I think a way you could kind of get creative with it and get after some of that who's going to quit, who's not. 20 minutes max
Mm,
distance.
yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
Cooper
that'd be
test
pretty
style.
cool. 20 minutes max,
Guys,
20 minutes
Fat
max
2.0.
distance, and you can do it with technology now. Now there's like no excuse, like like because the way that we solve the running tests in our app is you just hit start, and then the GPS is tracking you, and then when you hit 3 miles, it stops. But there's no reason I couldn't reverse it, and you hit the timer, and when you hit 20 minutes, it stops, and then it tells you how far you ran. So
Could you
that'd be
imagine?
pretty cool.
Because I hear Fort Bragg testing its PA system a lot. You equip every soldier with a GPS on the same day, 3, 2, 1, go. Everyone on post is running as far as they can until you hear that PA system beep after 20 minutes. That would be wild.
I don't know if you guys followed what is that Red Bull World Race? Have you seen that where they start the car
Uh-uh.
and then, I mean, this is on the extreme end, but I don't even know if they still do it, but Red Bull like started the car like an hour behind the runners, and at first the car's going like 5 minutes a mile, and then it like gets to 6 minutes a mile. And then like literally the winner is who ran the farthest before the car catches up to them. And it's always around like 40 miles. And it's a lot. I mean, but like
Wow, you're right.
but to get like 20 miles is a thing. And you have to be like an elite runner to get a marathon. So
The
it's a
only race,
cool challenge.
this is the title of the article on Red Bull's website. The only race where the finish line chases you.
Yes. It sounds super painful, right? Like, you just go, and like if you stop for water, like you're losing time. So
Mm.
Wow. The catcher car, it's called.
yes.
It starts at 15 kilometers per hour. No idea what that means in freedom units. 16 in the second hour, 17, all the way up to 35 kilometers an hour, 2 hours later. Interesting. Man, we're going to have to revisit the fat. Okay, but before we let you go, I want to ask, I mean, this is sort of tongue in cheek, but I think it's interesting nonetheless, because I mean, you're kind of now having joined is the wrong word, but you're like a multi-generational SEAL now.
Yeah.
You've done it twice. And the age-old trope of like, oh, well, my generation was harder. Which like who's been the toughest? Is it nowadays or was it back in the day?
Well, I think at least within our community, a lot of guys would say the guys now are just stronger, faster, more information. I mean, people are showing up to training in all branches of services with all the information. So I think it's just different. But I would say that the guys now are probably fitter, faster. Um, I think probably the older generation did harder things, but they did harder things probably because they weren't prepared for them
That's
as
fair.
much. Yeah,
That's
like
fair.
we had this is silliness, but like a joke when I was in when you jump out a helicopter, you'd be like, you're jumping out at 10 for 10, which is like you're jumping out of a helicopter into water from 10 feet high at 10 knots. And then they were like, okay, well, we're going to jump out at 15 for 15. And someone's like, well, we'll do 20 for 20. And then someone's like, why does the speed have to go up and the height like go up the same? That's just stupid, right? Like you don't have to jump out of a higher helicopter at a faster speed. Obviously there's a prescribed one, but I think probably in the early days in training, people did stupid things like that. Like they're like, okay, we did 10 for 10, so let's jump out at 20 for 20, and that's that's why I say it was harder in different ways if there wasn't
Fair.
common sense to rein it in.
I'm going to steal Drew's role for a second. Typically, Drew does our standard closer questions. Um, so we're going to do the changed your mind or doubled down question. So this is a two-parter. And you have a unique perspective because you were in for a while, you were out for a while, you spent time in the athletics world, you spent time in the military world. What's one thing that like all your experiences have like reconfirmed so you have doubled down on your commitment to that thing? And then what's something where you have changed your mind because of experiences you've had that like maybe last time you were in the military you believed one way and you see it differently now?
So say that again. So one thing that's reaffirmed and one thing that I
Yeah. One thing you've doubled down on, one thing you've changed your mind on.
It's his first time
okay.
closing.
So I mean, I think the thing that I would double down on is community, and sense of purpose. Like you have it when you're in, you don't realize that you're gonna miss that when you get out, and then as you sort of reconnect, you have this sense of community just by association. Um, just by me making the recommitment, like my sort of internal community has grown just in the last 2 weeks of people that I don't even know but are serving in branches of the military that think it's a great thing, and we can talk about it freely like we've known each other forever. So the thing I would double down on is community because I think that's what service members miss when they get out, and if they don't get plugged into the right occupation that can provide that, then have a hard time finding their way. The thing that would change my mind, um, the thing I actually have a good one on this. Just like legacy, and everyone's different, but for me, my life legacy has always been achievement oriented. Like, what is the next great thing that I can do? And I can see other people, their legacy might be like chasing money or the job or what it is. And when I thought about coming back in as a 50-year-old ensign, it's really what kind of legacy I'm going to lead in my life. Like certainly I could not spend drill weekends or the possibility of getting recalled and take another job and make more money and do more things as I get older. But the thing that I would that's changed my mind is like chasing all those things, like chase the right things. And I think it's different for every person. For me, again, my military background has always been a part of my identity. And as you get older and you start thinking about all the things that you've done in life, it's not going to be whether or not you climbed El Cap or not. It's going to be like, where did you contribute to society? And you do see it with service members working for a lot of nonprofits and giving back that way. They're doing the same thing. So that's the thing. Like just personally is what are you chasing, and understand why you're chasing it. And then if you're not chasing it for any reason, then think about chasing the right things.
Hmm.
That was
Boom.
good. That was deep. For no preparation for that question, those are both solid answers.
Well, thanks.
Wise. Well, hey, thanks for coming on and hanging out with us again. Congratulations. And
Yeah. Will you
yeah,
guys be
man.
going to that Human Performance Conference in DC in a month or so?
I will be actually.
Ah,
That's a recent decision, but I will be there at
Which
least
one?
for the Thursday part. Drew, he's asking about the DSI Human Performance and Biosystems Summit.
yeah, yeah. So I was kind of on the fence. I might go now. So
DSI, Human Performance and
it's a
Biosystems.
good
The
like kind of
DSI
industry.
DSI should pay me for that free ad that we just did. But
they they certainly should. Um, well, man, I really appreciate you guys allowing me to come on the show and talk about it. And I don't necessarily think of myself as the podcast personality guy. I know you've got better guests, but if I can find, I wanted to say one last thing. You mentioned like Bryson DeChambeau and the presidential physical fitness test, and that's like your guest wish. And if I can figure out how to connect the dots, I think that would be perfect because I think I'm way into the presidential fitness test. I
Boom.
think Bryson is like the best thing for the younger generation right now. Love him or hate him, golf is a great sport. It's active, and he's also like the fitness guy too. And so I think it's good. So any way that I can get good guests to your show, I'll do my best.
Hell yeah.
we appreciate it. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you,
on.
sir.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Team, welcome to the after party. Having just hung out with Jamie, I do want to inject some breaking news that people would not have heard because it was off recording. I do have verbal agreement from Alex that he's going to start playing golf.
Oh shit.
Do you want to speak to that? Because Jamie and I are both golfers. We're talking about getting Bryson DeChambeau on. Bit of a moonshot, but nonetheless. And I think your exact words were, "I'm really jealous of the relationship you guys have. I would love to play golf."
I don't think those were quite my words.
I said none of those things.
I think I'll tell two brief stories because I think they're relevant. I've only like really golfed one time before in my life. It was at like a bachelor party thing where we just like put a bunch of beers in a golf cart and zipped around an Arizona golf course.
There you go.
My claim to fame is that in that one time I played golf, I hit a birdie.
Nice.
And that would be really cool if what I meant was 1 under par.
I see where you're going with this. You hit a bird.
What I mean is I hit like a bird. Technically a duck.
Boom.
But that was my first golf experience.
How many times have you told that story?
A lot.
That's like a stand-up comedy bit.
The duck did live. That's the most common follow-up question. I didn't hit it hard enough to do serious damage.
It laughed at me and then flew away.
Yeah. It was certainly annoyed, but not much more than that. And then weirdly, like effectively the second time in my life I've golfed was like this past weekend. I went to a golf simulator for this guy's birthday, like whatever. They just like booked a thing. It was so bad. Like so bad. Like I will, if I'm really going to do this thing, like learn how to golf, I will probably need like a lot of YouTube videos and then like many hours at a driving range where nobody else is there because I don't want anybody to witness what happens.
This is how it starts. It begins.
But it is to like, I said this off air. I'm going to say it on air now. I don't want to go learn to golf. Like it's going to be a bad time initially, but I do recognize, and I've been thinking about this, it is good for you physically, psychologically, cognitively to like do something you're a beginner at regularly, like expose yourself to new things, try new sports, try new activities, like learn a thing. Just like that plasticity stuff people talk about in the cognitive domain. Like I think there is value in just like doing something that is new to you, and sucking at something is the first step to being kind of good at something.
Maybe we should start like a beginner's challenge. Like if you're gonna start golf, I'll find something that I suck at and do it, and we can chronicle. But speaking of not being a beginner, Jamie. So I think we will have probably also mentioned this in the introduction, which for folks that don't know, we typically record those after we've recorded this. So it's a little bit backwards, but regardless, we've hung out with Jamie on the show before. Awesome dude, just outright awesome dude. And we mentioned this in the recording, but just came up on Instagram one day as having like commissioned back into the SEALs after what, 22 years away? Which is nuts on the surface. But then and this is not a shot at Jamie at all, but I had to keep reminding myself as we're hanging out with him tonight, like he's 50. He looks like he's 30. I mean, so clearly, and we dove into this a little bit, but like he's done a lot to stay in shape and to just make fitness and health part of his lifestyle, which I think is awesome because we don't well, maybe we did directly ask it, but I think there's like an undertone throughout this whole conversation, whether it's the PT test tangents that we go on or the commissioning at 50, like there's a lot of lies that we allow ourselves to believe in terms of what we're capable of as we age, quote unquote. And if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like 50 is not old. Like you're obviously, he's passed all of the tests to be a SEAL. Like it's doable. It's hard, but it's doable. And you mentioned a lot of veterans and just people in general who are way younger than 50, but who tell themselves that because they're a certain number, they shouldn't be able to do things or things should hurt. And I think we're all guilty of it. But if you really take stock of like what's fact versus what are you telling yourself you're capable of, stories like Jamie's probably aren't as rare or shouldn't be as rare as they seem on the surface.
I gotta hit two things.
Please.
One,
golf balls.
I hear more than two golf balls. I hear all the time people leaving the military saying like, I can't wait to get fat and happy.
Yeah, seriously.
Right? And what Jamie said is like a core reason he has stayed in shape the last couple of decades is because he knows people are going to find out he was a SEAL and he wants to represent that part of his identity and that community well. And I wish more of that were the case for all veterans. Like I wish any given veteran would think to themselves, people are going to know I was a service member, a Marine, a soldier, a sailor, an airman, whatever. I should represent that community well. I should continue taking care of myself. I should continue doing hard things. I should continue challenging myself. Like that little like identity tweak would be so like that goes back to like the good knee, bad knee thing, or like, am I old or am I not? But just like the tweak of like, as a veteran or as a service member, I should want to be a good reflection on the community I represent. Amazing. The other one, this is going to be like a very different direction, but still tied to veteran identity. He, at the close, said that he's doubled down on community. And he particularly referenced fellow veterans or people he served with in that first era of his service that came back out as he's going back into the Navy. I think this will be a first for the podcast. Never done this before. I'm just going to straight up quote a LinkedIn post from a couple days ago.
From him?
This is not from Jamie. This is from a guy named Sonny Tai. He's a Marine Corps veteran. And he put up a really interesting post 2 days ago that I really, really, really like. He said, every time I ask, he's a startup guy. He's been at a couple startups. And he posted, every time I ask a veteran for a favor, usually an introduction to someone else, my response rate is probably something like 80%. Keep in mind, most of these people I have not actually met in real life. And about 50% of the time, they go the extra mile. They offer more than I even asked for. He says it's got to be one of the most powerful networks in the world. It might not be as strong as Stanford for startups or Wharton for finance, but you have 7% of the United States population who have a very high conversion rate of being willing to go to bat for you. And that's huge. And he closed by saying that's not the reason he joined the Marines, but it's one of the main things that made joining the Marines the best decision he made in his life. And that is like just to underline the power of community. I think it's underrepresented in human performance. Drew and I were just having conversations about like what the pillars of human performance are, or pillars of health, or pillars of wellness, or domains, or whatever you want to call them. And I think the special operations community explicitly makes social and family part of their model. Like, not only that, they employ like social and family specialists as part of their human performance teams in POTIF. And I think there is something there that the rest of the force might still be catching up on.
Yeah, I think we've found a thread that we should start pulling on.
I think so. You will hear more on that topic from us soon.
Yeah, and speaking of hearing more, you'll hear more from us next week. So,
Hey, Alex, let's cover our ass real quick.
Oh, great idea, Drew. All right, guys. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Before you go, please rate and review the pod on the listening platform of your choice. You can also visit us on our website at www.mopsinmos.com. That's mops, the letter N, mos.com. You can check out the library of podcast episodes, our latest blog entries, any helpful resources, and also sign up for our newsletter.
Drew nailed it. Just to underline a couple of things, the podcast entries have in-depth show notes on the website. So if you missed anything or you want to read any of the research we talk about, it is all there. You can, at the bottom of the website, sign up with your email and receive future updates from us. The blog posts go a little bit more in depth in kind of written form on a couple of topics we get questions about all the time. But most importantly, I just want to ask all you guys, our best way the word gets out is absolutely word of mouth. So tell your friends, tell the people you work with, anybody you think would find it useful. Thanks for spreading the word.
If you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot us an email at either Drew or Alex at mopsinmos.com.
Or there's a contact form on the website.
Thank you.
this week's episode is brought to you by Teamworks. If you have performance data scattered across apps, spreadsheets, group chats, it means things get missed. Teamworks brings it all together. Training, nutrition, scheduling, communication, all in one platform built for the people responsible for readiness. Learn more today at teamworkstactical.com.